All righty, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we got another good one for you. Seems like some positive momentum coming off a weekend visit. OU had a few players on campus this past weekend, but one in particular seemed to have gone pretty well from an outsider looking in. So we're going to be talking about him, and he's a part of maybe a little brother, maybe related to someone already on the team. So you got to feel halfway decent. But before we get into it, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And be sure to subscribe. We're almost to 6,200. We were for a little bit, then a few people unsubscribed. I understand, you get sick and tired of us, but if you're back, hit the subscribe button. So Kevin Sperry Sunday afternoon put out a tweet. He kind of does this as it seems like before every commitment, there's a gif of him and Brent Venables in the tunnel and him, in his number 9 Sooners jersey with some smiling faces and things like that. So obviously something went well this weekend, and piecing it together, we feel like it could be maybe Malik Hawkins, younger brother of Mike Hawkins, who's already on the team. He's out of North Texas. He's out of Frisco, Texas. The cornerback, 6'1", 180 pounds. He's a 4-star. He has a top 5, and he's already announced that he's committing in early April of Mississippi State, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas State. OU seems like their biggest competition was Texas, believe it or not, even though that Mike Hawkins is on the team, but Texas was still pushing, and they still are to get his commitment. But piecing this all together, being on campus this weekend, Kevin Sperry puts out this tweet. And then also, I think you mentioned earlier before we started recording that Mike Hawkins said he's got a good feeling about it in an interview. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, all signs are pointing to that. We were talking about it right before we started recording, like trying to figure out who it could be. That seems like the most natural next commit there. He's got a date, not an exact date solidified. It's early April. Tweeted it out a few weeks ago. So that commitment's coming up, and it would make sense that he would silently commit this weekend during his visit to give either the OU media people or Hayes Fawcett, whoever's making the edit for him, give him time to create the edit. These things don't happen overnight all the time. So give him, a couple weeks to get that all taken care of for him, and then he'll make it public. At least that's what we expect. Things change all the time. We've seen it every year. Every time a commitment is possibly coming, there's always that possibility of change. This one, though, seems like it is a long time coming. Really similar to Eli from the last cycle. It's someone that really hasn't been talked about much when it comes to a guy that would be part of the Oklahoma recruiting class, but doesn't really surprise anyone once it happens. I mean, Eli Bowen, I think he didn't commit till it was pretty late in the cycle, if I remember correctly. And for the most part, no one OU social media, OU fans on Twitter, weren't freaking out about where Eli Bowen was going, and maybe it's because you already have the crown jewel in Peyton Bowen. But Eli's was very talented in his own regard, and no one was ever really doubting that he was going to be a Sooner, and he's now a Sooner, already enrolled. Same thing with Malik. Kind of the same. It seems like the same situation. No one was ever really freaked out about the possibility of him going to Texas, even though it seemed like you mentioned, they were very much a player here, and it still could be in the next, however many months, 7 months, 9 months, before early National Signing Day. Can something change? Sure, I doubt it, but it's a good addition. Another defensive back for Jay Will and Brandon Hall to speak to when it comes to recruiting top level talent, and hopefully he's a guy that can make a splash early on. That's going to be a tough room to compete in, though.
And again, this is speculation, so it's assuming we don't know 100% that he's committed at this point, but piecing it together, it seems like OU must be feeling halfway decent after a conversation or two that they had this past weekend. It is interesting, though. You draw a good comparison between Eli and Peyton, and then Malik and Mike Hawkins. Isn't it interesting how Texas was around for both the little brothers? Almost like that they thought, well, big brother went to school. Let's see if we can convince him, like, don't follow your brother's footsteps and come play at the rival school. I wonder if that's kind of one of the thoughts. I mean, I know they're both talented, but I just wonder if that's kind of why they thought, well, we got to throw our names in the hat and just see we might actually have a chance.
I mean, it's possible, and you can't blame him for trying. Oklahoma tried to do the same thing to them in the last cycle with Zena Omazulu, the
Yeah.
defensive end. That seemed like Oklahoma was kind of in the driver's seat for a little bit there, but obviously he's now at Texas. I think this is just it's gonna be something, especially going into the SEC. I mean, these are really talented players in the state of Texas, so Texas is gonna want to keep them in state. Oklahoma's always pulling kids from Texas to Norman. So these battles are going to happen over and over, especially with how many, not just talented players, but talented players that have younger siblings that are already committed to one of the schools. Like, this isn't going to be the last time this happens. Um, I mean, Kevin Sperry's younger brother. And who knows what happened. It'll be a while from now because he is, I think, quite a few years younger. So Kevin might even be graduated by the time his younger brother is up. But that could be, if he develops like his brother does, maybe he's going to be a guy that Oklahoma and Texas are going to be fighting for come his graduating year.
They might. And assuming that Malik Hawkins is, going to commit and will be a part of this class, and it would be the next defensive back commit. He joins Trine Washington in the defensive backfield. Trine Washington seems to be kind of that versatile, kind of hybrid player. I mean, considering he's 6'3", he can kind of play whatever. But Malik Hawkins is definitely a corner based off what they're recruiting him at. So Brandon Hall and Jay Valai, which I know Malik Hawkins is Jay Valai. It's a pretty solid addition, we're assuming at this point. With the spring game coming April 20th, I wouldn't be surprised if you see, maybe a week or two before the spring game, maybe like April, basically that week of, I don't know, April 6th through the 13th, maybe. You see a commitment dropped by him. It's just a guess. And that way he's committed, locked in, and he can do the peer-to-peer recruiting because I'm imagining that he will be at the spring game. So getting him on board is great. And that would be Oklahoma's 11th commit. Yeah, 11th commit at this point. I would imagine he would be the next one. Now, I'm not saying that couldn't happen. Something couldn't happen between now and a month, basically. But to me, it kind of seems like this is the safest to assume.
Especially because when you look at the rest of the recruiting landscape for who Oklahoma's targeting, I mean, you're looking at three of the best offensive linemen in the country. When you're talking about high 4-stars, 5-star guys, they're not going to be off the board, till summertime. And even at that, you're still battling other schools until that pen hits paper come December. Then you got Jonah Williams, who was crystal balled a ton. They're in early February, late January to Oklahoma. I think I saw somewhere that he is visiting Texas, which isn't surprising. I mean, Texas is going to try to, take their shot at one of the best defensive players, if not the best defensive player in this class in the state of Texas. So we'll see how that goes. But Oklahoma's got a lot of battles that they really got to focus in on in the summertime. I mean, that's when OU does the most damage on the recruiting trail. And if they can lock in two of those offensive linemen and then hit on Jonah, you got, potentially 2 or 3 5-stars there in non-skill positions, which is different for sure. But it really bolsters where Oklahoma needs the depth, especially with the offensive linemen.
It is. So we'll see what ends up happening. But a short video today, some positive momentum from this weekend. I'm sure there'll be more that'll be coming out a little bit later this week about this past weekend and what's coming up. So we'll be dropping another video a little bit later this week. But if you made it this far, be sure to like the video. Jose, do you have an individual challenge?
Let us know what you think.
All right.
Is Malik the next guy, or is it someone else?
All right. Sounds good. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below, and we'll catch you guys next time.